Today on Fob, it is Premier League predictions. Yes, I am putting my neck on the line and predicting 20-1, where I think every team is going to end up at the end of the season. We're also talking about the Mourinho documentary on Netflix. We are doing some hot takes from your voice notes, and I have a hot take about squash. Here's the show. Hello and welcome to Fred Asquith on the Ball. With me, Fred Asquith. Me and you are going to be chatting sports. This week, it's very football orientated because the Premier League season is on the horizon. So we're going to be doing our Premier League predictions. But normally we talk about all sorts of sports. We talk golf, boxing, snooker, tennis, the whole fucking lot. Nothing is off the table. So please subscribe if you want to chat sports with me every single week. But before we get on to Premier League predictions, the big news is that I beat a 12-year-old at FIFA last week. It made my week. Do you know, I hadn't played FIFA. I used to fucking rinse FIFA. I've got days, weeks of my life spent on that fucking game. But I hadn't played it for probably about 4 years since I snapped the disc. Because I was just playing it too much. And that was the second time I'd snapped a FIFA disc. Not out of a loss, just out of pure addiction. Just out of like a, wow, I need to get off this game and go fucking touch grass. And I snapped the disc previously in 2019 as well. The problem is now it's a fucking digital download. So I can't snap the fucker anymore. I'm all over it now. I beat a 12-year-old. I got the bug. By the way, I don't just have 12-year-olds around my house. It was one of my wife's friends brought their kid round and he was telling me, giving me the big un about how good he was at FIFA. Fuck off, mate. Fuck off. And if I was 12, I would beat you now as well. I was better than you at 12 than you are now at 12. Do you think I've got some fucking issues? This is why I snapped the discs. Right, anyway. So I'm playing FIFA Seasons again. Seasons is my game mode of choice. And if you see a Fred Asquith pissing around on there, watch the fuck out, basically, because you're going to get absolutely slapped. We are going to do our Premier League predictions. And I want you to know that there's a balance of analysis and vibes going on here. I'm not going to be like giving like in depth on why so-and-so are going to finish 17th. But at the same time, I'm going to give you a reason. And some of those reasons might be analytical. Some of those reasons might just be like a feeling. And to be honest, like the way I feel about predictions is that they actually don't fucking matter. And some things are so outlandish that they seem ridiculous. Like some things that actually happen in the real season are so outlandish that they seem ridiculous before they happen, right? So Sunderland finished, was it 7th last season? But if you'd have predicted that in advance of the season, you'd be sent into a fucking home or something. Like, so I'm all for doing predictions, so long as we all remember that none of us actually know what's going to happen, and it's all bullshit until it happens, right? To be honest, Matt, I don't think I've got anything crazy outlandish, but maybe I've got some takes. We're going to have some takes. And I'm so excited. I finally get the chance to be Gary Neville. And maybe Jamie Carragher will laugh at my predictions in 10 months' time. If Jamie Carragher would give me the honour of laughing at my predictions in 10 months' time, even though his predictions weren't even better than mine, it fucking pisses me off, those Monday Night Football predictions. They're always fucking giggling at each other, and they're both shite predictions. I do ask for voice notes on Fob, and voice notes can be about anything. Topical voice notes are good, but hot takes are also good. However, I did ask for voice notes about the Premier League predictions, and Cole sent in this message about pre-season because I said because I put something out on my Instagram story at Fred Asquith on the Ball saying how much do you care about pre-season and how much does it actually matter in terms of Premier League predictions in your opinion, and I got this message response from Cole.
On the topic of pre-season, I would say it's not as important as some people make it out to be, but it's good to keep an eye out for your club. But I will say, if you are watching other teams, like rival teams, pre-season games and taking the piss out of them for losing them, like, you need to get a hobby. It's fucking embarrassing. Like, I'm a Spurs fan, right? I'll take any opportunity to dunk on Arsenal. Obviously, pretty difficult after the season just gone. But if you're looking at Arsenal losing a pre-season game and being like, they're shit, grow up, man. It's pre-season. Like, what are you doing? Seriously, come on.
I completely agree. I love this message call. Link it in the description if you want to send your voice notes. I love this message call because I can feel the bitterness of like the algorithm. Basically, like it gets to us all. Like the toxic football bro discourse algorithm of just like, oh, I don't even need to go into it. I know exactly where you're coming from. People just shut the fuck up. This is why I'm so happy I genuinely don't support a club. I'm a complete neutral. So happy about that because, like, even in declaring a club, you already get yourself entangled in the toxic discourse. So I'm going to run through where I think everyone will end up in the Premier League this season. We're going to go 20-1, and I'm going to give a reason for why. Obviously, as the higher we get up, I'll maybe give more in-depth reasons. Early on, might give quicker reasons. And we are going to come back to this at the end of the season, obviously. They do that on Monday Night Football and other outlets, but sometimes outlets don't come back clearly enough, and it fucking annoys me because then you can just say whatever you want and never be held accountable. They do hold them accountable on Sky Sports, so that's great. I also don't give a shit if it's wrong now, do you know? Going back to what I said before, like it actually doesn't fucking matter. But what I also won't do, which I fucking hate, is when pundits fucking change their opinion within the first 3, 5, 10 games. It annoys me so much. You fucking knee-jerk fucking plastic pundit being like, oh, well, I know I predicted X to win the league, but actually, you know, if I was doing the predictions now, it'd actually be Y. But I'll stick with X because I said them before, but just hedging my bets that it'll actually be Y. Bro, say what you want to say and fucking stick to it. And do you know what bothers me about it most? If you're wrong, that's okay. It's the way these like egos are like protecting themselves against future embarrassment, being like, oh, well, you predicted X to win the league and it was actually Y. And they'll be like, oh, well, I did actually say like after the fifth game that Y would win. Bro, nobody fucking cares, bro. Just stick by your prediction. It's your prediction. Say the reasons for it. Be a pundit and then stand by the reasons as a fucking pundit. It's not a pundit to say, oh, they're top of the league now, so I think they're going to win after 10 games. That's not punditry. That's called reading. Reading a league table. Give me some fucking insight, bro. Right. Watch me. Watch me be so wrong. Watch me be so wrong about these predictions and never mention it ever again. Right. At number 20, like a fucking top 40 singles chart counter. At number 20, Ipswich Town. They have... I was going to say they've lost their manager who got them up from the Championship, Kieran McKenna, but turns out he's actually stepped down. Look, I haven't been following Ipswich Town until now they're in the Premier League. So Gary O'Neill is in. Gary O'Neill doesn't have that strong of a CV as a manager. He's a very, very new manager. They've got tons of signings, can go either way. I'm just putting them at bottom. You know, they're a promoted side. I'm just feeling the vibes there. Hull City at 19th. They actually finished below Ipswich Town last season, but I'm putting them at 19th because I quite like their spirit in that playoff final. They won in the final minute. They'd only just qualified in 6th, but they've got some stability there. They're keeping their manager. They've got some right old standard issue signings. Jack Butland's coming in. Matt Targett's coming in from Newcastle. I'm just sticking them at 19 for vibes. They were one of the teams that I nearly supported when I was younger because they're nearby my hometown. Couldn't be asked. Don't really like Hull. Love to everyone who lives in Hull. You've got a great aquarium. 18th. I am relegating Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace's last 3 seasons, 10th, 12th and 15th under Oliver Glasner for the last 2. They've now got Pierre Sage. Oliver Glasner has left for Nottingham Forest. They've got Pierre Sage, who has managed Lens and Lyon. And they've been very quiet in the transfer window. Pierre Sage, you know, who knows? He might be a fucking world beater, but it doesn't look like it based on his CV so far. Instability, untested new manager, quiet in the transfer window. I think they're off. 17th, Nottingham Forest. So they have previously been at times strong in the Premier League. I'm putting them for a bad season because they ended last season on really bad form, like lower mid-table form. They have 4 managers in the space of 1 season. No cohesive plan or direction on where the club's going. They got to Europa League semi-final. They now have Glasner in from Palace, who, to a certain extent, has shown stability at Palace, but then at the same time was 12th and then 15th. They've also lost to Elliot Anderson to City, who I think was the engine of that team in so many different ways. I'm just not feeling it for Forest this year, so I'm putting them 17th. 16th, Sunderland. So they've retained their manager, Reggie Lebris. They haven't had much activity in the transfer window. They've had one transfer. Thomas Meunier is coming on a free, the 34-year-old Belgian midfielder. So I just don't... Look, they had an incredible season last season. They finished 7th. Same manager, same squad for all intents and purposes. But I just feel like they didn't end the season on great form. They didn't have a great goal difference. They flattered to deceive, and I can see them sinking like a fucking stone this year. 15th, Fulham. So Fulham have a new manager, Arbeloa. Previously managed Real Madrid after they got rid of Xabi Alonso last season. Managed them for the second half of the season. Obviously managed Real Madrid B as well. I think he did well with Real Madrid B. Speaking of which, he's brought in 2 players from Real Madrid, Palacios and Garcia. This could go either way. Like, they could be a Sunderland, not that they've been promoted, but they could be like 7th, 8th. Like, they could do really, really well. But I just don't know if we really know what Arbeloa is as a senior team manager. I'm just sort of sticking them in here as sort of like I can't really decide where they're going to end up. 14th, Brentford. Very similar situation. They were 9th last season. They've kept their manager, Keith Andrews, just sticking them at 14th. It's sort of that grey area before you start having like some actual opinions. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Brentford, they're just going to have a Brentfordy season and then they'll just finish 14th. Like, I don't really know what else to say. 13th, Newcastle United. So they have lost Trippier. They've lost Tonali. They've lost Guimaraes. They've lost the manager, Eddie Howe. I'm banging them as having quite a big drop from last season. I don't think this takeover has gone to plan. Also, they finished last season on terrible form, and I know they've got a new manager now, but that new manager is very untested. What's his fucking name again? Matthias Yaisel, who was previously managing Al Ahly in Saudi and has managed Red Bull Salzburg. Yeah, he's certainly untested. Was supposed to be a bit of a prodigy of a manager, so he might have an incredible season. But yeah, I'm just feeling like those losses in the squad, change of backroom staff, I'm just not seeing this go well. But you never know. 12th, Everton. I think Moyes is solid. I just think they're never going to have like a terrible, terrible time. With Moyes, you have stability and solidity and a robustness to a certain extent. I think he showed that with his stints at West Ham. I think when you get rid of Moyes, you realise how much he actually gets out of pretty average squads. So I think they'll just stick there or thereabouts as where they were before. 11th, Brighton. It's a difficult one. They've lost Welbeck, who was their top scorer last season. Look, I'm not saying Welbeck's going to change your entire fucking season, but respect where respect's due. Welbeck was their top scorer last season, and they have lost him. Where are those 13 goals going to come from? We shall see. I'm sticking them at 11th. So you might be thinking, where are Coventry? Well, they're here. They're 10th. Promoted Coventry. Frank Lampard's Coventry City. I'm putting them at 10th because I actually really want it to happen for Frank Lampard. I feel like he's had a difficult time of it in the Premier League. He had a really difficult time at Everton. He had a really difficult time in his second stint at Chelsea. His first stint at Chelsea, I think, is a little bit underrated. He did have some massive financial restrictions at the time. I want him to realise his potential in the Premier League because I think he does have the potential to be an exciting manager, but he's just not quite proven at this level. So this is more me trying to manifest this a little bit. However, they did absolutely storm the Championship last season. Absolutely stormed it. They scored 97 goals. So I'm just sort of going on those sorts of vibes. They have a tough start. They start at Arsenal, then they're going to City 2 weeks after that. But I think I can just feel a Sunderland-esque season. And like I say, before last season, putting Sunderland at 7th would have been a fucking insane move. I'm putting Coventry at 10th. I'm just feeling it. 9th, Spurs. So this is a difficult one for me because I feel like quite often Spurs have been in a situation where I've been like, oh yeah, well now their fortunes are going to change. The quality of manager is arguably decreasing over time, but even through the after they got rid of Pochettino, who is obviously a bit of a sensation, they have Mourinho, Then Nuno Espirito Santo, fine, that's by the by. Antonio Conte, Ange Postecoglou, Thomas Frank, I thought felt like a decent appointment at the time, didn't do well. Now they got Roberto De Zerbi. It's almost like history's telling me that this is not going to be the time where they turn it around in a big way and start to challenge at the top again. Not for the title. I just mean start to be the Spurs that we felt like they'd become towards the mid and end of Pochettino's reign. You know, that sort of like fourth, maybe third. I think they finished second in the Leicester season. I want that to happen again to a certain extent because I kind of want the narrative to change. As a neutral, I'm a little bit bored of the narrative of Spurs just being like, oh yeah, now it's going to be different now. And it's like, it's not. It's just not. They've signed Andy Robertson from Liverpool, Mateus Fernandes, Tonali from Newcastle. They got rid of some Deadwood, but De Zerbi's a bit of an inflammatory figure. I just don't know if it's all going to blow up in his face, if it would be scintillating football, if he's going to form a bond with that fan base. I don't know how that's going to play out. Honestly, you could tell me that Spurs finish anything as high as 4th and anything as low as 17th again, and I'd be like, yeah. You could tell me that they changed managers twice this season. Like I'd be like, eh. So I'm putting them 9th. Bit of a hot take at 8th. I've got Leeds. They were 14th last season. They've signed Trafford in goal. I think he's a great keeper. They've got stability with the same manager in Farke. They've been really decent in pre-season. You know, this is the pre-season that I'm going to just randomly count for a second. They beat Sunderland fair, but then Liverpool, RB Leipzig, who knows? I'm just feeling that. And like, hey, you can't tell me that it's crazy or not because the season hasn't happened yet. 7th, Villa. I kind of wanted to put Villa lower. Everything's pointing in the wrong direction for Villa for me. Think about this, right? They're going to be in the Champions League. Unbelievable that they got Champions League again under Unai Emery. Unai Emery, he fucking loves a European competition, right? They won the Europa League last season. He fucking loves this. So he's going to go for the Champions League. But I feel like that's just going to stretch them too thin, which is, it's a classic piece of punditry to say that, but I do think it's true in this regard. They've lost Rodgers to Chelsea. They've lost Tielemans to United. In the previous time they were in the Champions League with Unai Emery, they got to the quarterfinal and they had an unbelievable performance in the quarterfinal. They lost 5-4 to PSG on aggregate. PSG ended up winning the whole thing. They beat PSG 3-2 in the second leg. So we know that Unai Emery can do this in Europe. But in the same season, they finished 6th. And they had these players that I'm saying they've lost now. I think they were a stronger squad then. Me saying they're finishing 7th isn't that hot of a take, but I kind of wanted to put them lower. I just feel like they're going to be stretched even thinner with a worse squad. 6th, Bournemouth. The fact that it's ended up this way feels sort of wild, but it's just how the chips fell. They've lost their manager, Iraola, to Liverpool. They've got Marco Rosa, who won 2 cups with Leipzig. Didn't win anything at Dortmund. I feel like the structure's there. I feel like Bournemouth are always there or thereabouts in sort of like the upper mid-table. This is where they've ended up. Bournemouth are sort of like a product of how I feel about Villa, how I feel about Spurs, rather than me actually thinking they're going to be anything necessarily exceptional. But, I mean, I've put them at 6. It actually feels nuts looking at that. I mean, they finished 6th last season, so it shouldn't be that nuts, really, but they've changed different manager. No, I'll keep them there. Yeah, it's like I say, it's more of like a product of how everyone else has shuffled, really. Top 5. Here we go. Okay, let me set the scene. Top 5. 5th, 4th, and 3rd. I'll say right now, I have put the 3 big teams with new managers. Okay, which might spoil what's happening at the top there. But let me explain. I've put Liverpool at 5th. So I'm basically saying that of the 3 teams with new managers, so that's Liverpool, City and Chelsea, I'm calling Iraola to have the tougher of the times. I don't think they're going to have a tragic season, but I think it might be more difficult for him to bed in. I'm feeling like another transitional phase for Liverpool. I'm not feeling like this is going to be the dynasty that they all sort of want it to be. They finished 5th last season under Slot. I don't think it's that crazy to say they'll finish 5th again. City. So Guardiola is gone. The dynasty is over. He has been replaced with Enzo Maresca, who is kind of a Guardiola protege. Not really. He kind of came up on his own. Then he was an assistant manager under Guardiola for a little bit at City. He got Leicester promoted from the Championship. You know, he's got some good things on his CV. They have signed Elliot Anderson, a player I absolutely love. However, I've just read that Rodri might be leaving. That's not confirmed at the time of recording, but he might be leaving to go to Barcelona. So Anderson would obviously be filling that role, and he obviously can fill that role, but we know of the statistic of City's performances with and without Rodri, and any team would lose out by losing Rodri. So but they have got some incredible players. They've got Cherky, got Semenyo. Speaking of which, we had a voice note from Stefano about top scorer in the Premier League this season.
I think Erling Haaland is going to win the Golden Boot again. That's obvious. But I think he's going to break the record again. I feel like the momentum he's coming off after the World Cup, I think he was what?
Yeah, I agree. I think he had unbelievable momentum at the World Cup. I feel like he sort of graduated as a player into being like a leader. I think before he was like almost like a young starlet, just this like fucking firecracker. Now I feel like he feels like a man. He feels like a leader, and I can see him leading the line physically, but also like mentally for City a lot more this season. I think the transition is going to be difficult from Guardiola. I think this is as big a dynasty in terms of the success as trying to transition from Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger. We see this being a difficult thing for clubs to do, transition from a huge dynasty. I think there can be things bubbling up from the dressing room, a little bit of discontent. Third, so I'm putting Chelsea. I feel like this is a bit of a hot take to put Chelsea at third, but I'm just going for it, okay? New manager, Xabi Alonso, he did unbelievable things at Leverkusen. They had an unbeaten season. Some of the comebacks and clutch moments they had that season were insane. I loved watching it. He then went to Real Madrid. They didn't like him at Real Madrid. Replaced him with Arbeloa, who didn't do that much better, to be honest. I think he's going to be able to implement a style pretty quickly here, because I think the club has been sort of without identity for a while. I think he's going to implement identity, and that's why he's brought in his generals in Henderson and Welbeck to sort of help him instill a club culture. I think he's going to do that. And although he didn't win, he took over Leverkusen halfway through a season, right? And so he didn't really have a chance to win anything at that point. But in his first full season with Leverkusen, he did win. That was the unbeaten season. So I think he's proven that he can instill a tactical framework relatively quickly. And I think alongside the introduction of Hendo and Welbeck, that can be a big cultural shift. I think if he can get Palmer firing, if he can get Palmer and Rodgers firing, he's also got Barco, that Argentinian bloke who Jude Bellingham slapped after the semi-final. You could argue one way or the other with the transfer window strategy. I like it personally, and Colwill's coming. Colwill was like a new sign at the end of last season. It feels like the squad's freshened up in different ways, and they've also got that leadership in there. I'm just feeling like Chelsea are going to have a good season. Second, another semi-hot take. I've got United at second. Do you remember those form tables at the end of the last season? It was like the outlets were like, oh, if you totaled up the form since Carrick took over, United would have won the league, or that kind of bullshit. It's like the last 13, the last 15 games of the season or whatever. I do think it counts for something. I think he took over, you have that new manager bounce, but I think he actually showed that he has the tactical stability, tactical clarity, communication, like club comms is really important as a United manager. Also, I liked his selection style. I liked it that he got more out of Mainu. I liked it that he got more out of Luke Shaw, albeit previous managers have had Luke Shaw injured the entire time, but still, I liked it that he put his trust in Maguire. I think that he has shown that he has the juice to potentially be a successful United manager. Putting them at second is a hot take. I'm kind of doing that because, again, I think Chelsea, City, Liverpool may have some more transitional issues. They've brought in Tielemans, who I think is a really, really underrated player. We talked about Villa getting to that quarterfinal with PSG in the Champions League. Tielemans scored in that game. I think he's a big game player. They do have enough sort of quality in there. Bruno Fernandes is the best example. And I do think they have now a figurehead who can represent the history and culture of United. I'm just sort of feeling that something can happen for United this season. Okay, which leaves top of the league for the second season running, Arsenal. Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. I feel like I haven't actually checked. Do you know what? I haven't checked any predictions before I've done my prediction. But I feel like most predictions will have Arsenal at the top again. And I think that's the only logical prediction you can make. They have just won the league. They have just got to the final in the Champions League. They have shown that they can do it. They have lifted the hoodoo. They've lifted the mental block. Arteta shows that he's got the goods. The squad shows that he's got the goods. They've strengthened with Guimaraes from Newcastle. Not much else going on there, but they have just done it. I don't really see a reason to not pick them. Do you know what I mean? Like a managerial change or massive losses in the squad. I just see it being Arsenal again. So that's my Premier League standings for this season. We will come back to them at the end of the season, maybe midway through the season. Maybe we can have a laugh even midway through the season. But I will hold myself accountable. Other things I'm looking forward to this season outside of the Premier League. I'm looking forward to Kane potentially winning a Ballon d'Or, potentially having another record goal-scoring season with Bayern Munich. It does make me sad that he didn't do it for England when it mattered against Argentina. Instead, he sat back into a back 11. But I'm happy for the bloke. I hope he wins another league title. I hope they win the Champions League even. I want Kane to win a big trophy so that he can believe that he can do it with England. That would be ideal. I'm looking forward to... Well, I've actually got in this list Salah at Trabzonspor. I'm not actually looking forward to that. I guess if a clip comes up on YouTube being like, Salah scores in his debut, like I'm going to watch it. But I feel like it's a bit sad. When Salah was like itching to leave Liverpool as early as, 2-3 seasons ago, was this really the move that he had in mind? He looked sad in his press pictures. Like, was he not wanting to go to, like, if he wanted a payday, was he not going to go to Saudi or, like, the US? You know, he's getting a payday at Trabzonspor, I'm sure, but, like, it's just the worst of both worlds, surely. Surely he would have offers from, like, AC Milan, Juventus. There's definitely someone in the Serie A. Like, I just thought it was a weird choice from Salah for me, that. I'm looking forward to seeing Anthony Gordon at Barca. He's essentially taken the Marcus Rashford role, right? I think he did incredible for England at the World Cup. He really grew into the tournament, showed that he can be a big game player. I mean, he was the only one who scored for us when it mattered. So, I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I hope he does well. Good luck to the bloke, okay? Yeah, I'm sure he'll gets him away from the Princess Diana tweets as well. Also, I'm really looking forward to Jose Mourinho at Madrid. How the fuck has that happened, by the way? How the frickety flip has that happened? Because I feel like we've all witnessed a decline in maybe not Mourinho's ability, I'll come on to that, but definitely Mourinho's roles since his second stint at Chelsea, right? No disrespect to the teams that he has gone to since then, but he won the league with Chelsea, left in a crazy situation where I think they lost like 7 in the first 10 or something ridiculous. Then he went to United, then he went to Spurs, Roma, Fenerbahce, Benfica. It just felt like bum, 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 bum. We were seeing the end of Jose Mourinho. It felt like his tactics were potentially quite archaic. Felt like he didn't have any new ideas. And then now, boom, he's back at Real Madrid where he had his heyday, arguably, even though he didn't win the Champions League with them. He's back, and I'm so curious to see if Mourinho can still do it on a big stage like that, because we haven't really seen him on a huge stage like that since his second stint at Chelsea, but kind of since he left Real Madrid, right? Like, that was the absolute peak of Mourinho, and it feels like, as a neutral, get your popcorn out. Like, I'm able to enjoy another chapter in the fucked up fuckery book that is Mourinho. I'm so excited about that. And he's going to be managing Bellingham. Like, what the fuck's going to happen there? Is that going to go well? Is that going to go bad? Who the fuck knows? Is he going to last longer than 9 months? Is he going to last longer than 2 years? Probably not. He never does. But going back to what I said I'd come back to people had the sense that he was losing his ability as a manager. I'm on Mourinho's side about this. Mourinho always backs himself, right? He always gives you the stats. Yes, his sort of like Mourinho bounce and then Mourinho crash pattern has become clearer. But actually, the bounce is absolutely still there. Won the League Cup with United, won the Europa League with United. He got to the final of the League Cup with Spurs before getting fired, like a couple of days before, which was fucking ridiculous. And they ended up losing the final, obviously. I mean, I feel like he always wins trophies, and that was the trophy he would have won at Spurs, which would have been a fair result, really, given where Spurs were at the time. He won the Conference League at Roma. I feel like he does have a clear identity. It does feel like old news, the way he wants to play and the way he conducts himself in press conferences and stuff like that. I feel like he might still have the juice. I wonder if we're going to see a bit of vintage Mourinho this season. I'm excited to watch. Speaking of which, there is a new Mourinho documentary out on Netflix as of the 11th. So as you're listening to this, it might already be out. There's already scoops coming out from it that like kind of ruin it, which is really fucking annoying when this happens. Because it's like, I want to watch the documentary to learn the shit. I don't want to be told all the shit before I watch the documentary. Anyway, came out in the news that Jose Mourinho confirmed that he was the first pick to replace Alex Ferguson at the end of Alex Ferguson's tenure at United, and he turned it down to go back to Chelsea. I fucking love this story, only because the story that Alex Ferguson and David Moyes and the club told everyone when David Moyes ended up taking over from Ferguson was that he was the one and only choice. It was that Ferguson walked into his office and was like, I want you to be my new Manchester United manager. It was always like this like king-making moment, this passing of the torch, this like, it's gotta be David Moyes because he is like spiritually similar to Fergie. He's got the same steely stare. He doesn't take any shit, all this stuff. And then now, over 10 years later, we learn that actually it was Mourinho. Alex Ferguson wanted Mourinho. Mourinho just said no. So Moyes catching strays in the news 10 years later. Poor bloke. Can I just finish off by saying, Fred Asquith on the ball, thank you for being here. We do discuss all sports, but it is just that at the moment, Premier League season's starting, so we're going to talk about football for the predictions. But there is also going to be snooker season starting, darts season is kicking into gear, F1's coming back. We have a lot to be talking about. Boxing, obviously, we might have Fury Joshua, but we might also never have that. And I also just want to say, for any lovers of squash out there, I hear you. And I love you because I love squash, and I just want to give a little eulogy to the death of squash, which has happened. There was once upon a time, squash was like the thinking person's racket sport. You know, it was the racket sport. It was like, you can take your tennis, you can take your badminton, right? I play squash. Squash fucking slaps, and it's the best workout you can ever have. I trained at squash for a couple of years when I was younger. I wanted to play at like uni district level. Turns out I got to uni and a lot of people were better than me. I was pretty shite, to be honest. It got to that point where I got to uni, I was like, okay, I'm definitely not the best. Not only am I not the best, but there are like 2 or 3 guys who are clearly a little bit better than me. So I'll just play those guys over and over and over again, just getting beat, being happy when I won once. You know, that was the vibe I was in. And there was a point where I was like, how is squash not an Olympic sport? And actually, squash is going to be at the next Olympics, but it's on like a cycle system. So I think now you can award 1 new sport per Olympics, and then you change it at the next Olympics. And it's sometimes dependent on like what's relevant for the host nation. It's actually ironic that it's going to be in the Olympics even once or permanently or whatever, after it's really fallen from grace in terms of like a casual sport that anyone plays. Like, it used to be the sport for corporate dudes in the 90s to go put their squash goggles on and go smack a ball around, probably a black ball 2 spots, right? Because they're hard. And now it's completely taken over by padel, right? That is completely taken over. Basically, all casual squash playing has been taken over by padel. And the reason for that is that padel is a more social game. You can play padel outside. Squash is played in these old, crusty, white rooms. You feel like you're in an insane asylum as you're running 9,000 kilometers to just lose to a guy called Greg. You know, padel is it's sunny, it's outdoors, it feels classy, it feels different, it feels fresh, it feels competitive, but then you can also play it a bit casually as well. So a eulogy to squash. I will be watching the Olympics. I think it's a fantastic game. You get a right fucking sweat on. Whenever I see a squash video come up in my algorithm, it's got like 200 likes, and I always like it because I want to keep seeing squash videos, because I think it's the sport that lost out, I think, is squash. I think, you know, like how I can't remember a specific example of this, but I feel like the sports where you look back in the day and it's like, oh, well, football actually used to be a sister sport to X and Y, and football was the one that won out, and actually we don't play X and Y anymore. It's a little bit like that, where it's like, in 100 years, I just don't feel like people are going to be playing squash and instead everyone will be playing padel and badminton and tennis. And I'm sad about that. But then it's going to be at the Olympics, which is a bit weird. Anyway, that was my hot take of the week. Send in your hot takes. Link is in the description to send a voice note. Thanks for your voice notes this week. This was Fred Asquith on the ball with me, Fred Asquith. Me and you are chatting sports every single week. If you want to just subscribe, there will be more sports than just football and randomly squash. Follow the pod at Fred Asquith on the ball, TikTok and Instagram. Rate and review, please. Fob is on the up. That can be your review. Rate 5 stars, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Thank you for being here. See you next time. We're on the ball.